again for episode 298 of the Minding Your Business podcast. I am here. I am your host, Champ Ron Brooks, here in Memphis for episode 298 of the Minding Your Business podcast. Entrepreneurship, real estate, trending news. There's no business like minding your own. So love being here. Love coming back to you. We're getting really close to that episode number 298. We're episode 298, getting close to 300. And so we're definitely excited about that. It's going to be great times for that episode. I'm gearing up for it. Yes, I'm geared up for that particular episode. So listen, tap in with me, champ10k.com. That's where you can learn more about me. You can, that's sort of serves as my business card. So you could get links. I've got all kinds of resources out there, free, some low cost, and some at no cost. So definitely tap in with me. If you're interested in leveling up your real estate business, you're just getting started, you don't have a whole lot of money, but you got a whole lot of ambition and a whole lot of drive. You can get started with me there. And there's all kinds of resources I'm happy to direct you to. And of course, you could always tap in if you're here in Memphis and you're building your business in kind of a more underserved area of Memphis. You could tap in with rivercitycapital.com. rivercitycapital.org. Rivercitycapital.org is where you can tap in there if you want to learn more about River City and some of the great things that we are doing there. We're excited. We're here. This is Owwll week. Right. All right. So this is Owwll week. For those of you that are not familiar with the Owwll app, you can check the show notes for this particular episode. You've seen me share it now for a little bit of time. It just came out of beta, right? So it's actually launched app, and it is Owwll. You'll find it in any of the app stores, whether you have Apple or you have an Android, doesn't matter. It is available there. Currently, as of the recording, it's only available in the United States for right now, although that's going to change very soon, according to the owner, Jason Hill. Definitely shout out to him. He's the owner and the founder of Owwll. And just to give you a quick high level, then I want to introduce our guest. Owwll is what I refer to as connect media, and that phrase was coined by my guy Brian Strubar, who is probably listening to this at some point, and is a good friend of mine that I met through Owwll. But Owwll allows you to connect with kind of your favorite expert. Have you ever been looking to get advice from an expert? Someone who's an expert in the field, but they're putting you off on their calendar, that you got to pay their full rate. Imagine calling an attorney and you got 3 questions, but you got to pay $250 or $300 an hour, right? And then maybe get put off 6 weeks, on their calendar because they're just busy, right? Imagine them being available on an app where you could call them up and get 10, 20 minutes of their time and just either pick their brain or get a few of your questions answered that can really send you on your way and really jet propel you. And then on the other side, imagine being an expert and not having to give your phone number out to some crazy or, getting tied up on the phone for you look up 45 minutes have gone by. You've been talking to somebody, it's not really fruitful, but you don't get the time back and you didn't get paid for it. Right. So you get this whammy all the way around. Well, imagine having a media where you can flip a switch and let people know when you're available. People can give you a call and, you can have a 10-minute conversation with somebody or a 20-minute conversation and really pour into them. And they may even hire you, or you be willing to connect off the app. Right. But use the app as kind of that filter. So Owwll kind of serves those two different components for us. I'm an expert on there, so you can find me. Definitely tap in Ron Brooks there on the Owwll app. And the links in the show notes. And you can actually get $10 today by signing up through the link. And so they'll give you $10 and you can use that money to make phone calls to your favorite expert or experts. And then if you find value in it, you can upload additional money. And again, it's a great way to talk to people, not even just in your local market, but, really, again, all around the country. I've been able to connect with some really great dynamic people all the way around just from being connected on the Owwll app. So it's a great technology. It's different than social media where you're just posting pictures of videos and dancing on TikTok videos and pointing to captions and all that. This is a little bit different animal in that you don't have to be on it all day to grow, right? It's not like Clubhouse where you got to sit on there 24/7 and host rooms and moderate and kick people out of rooms and ping people in. You don't have to do any of that stuff because you're busy living in real life, right? So for those of us that live in real life, you get a chance to use a social media or a connect media that allows you to then connect with an audience and bring your audience on there, and they can get value from other experts, including yourself. And it's monetized, so you get paid. Owwll keeps 20%, you get 80%, right? So on a $5 call, you're getting $4, right? But think about how many of those calls you have where you get nothing and you're just kind of pouring into people. And then on the other side, imagine having to pay someone $250 an hour just to get 3 questions asked, And so, it helps all audiences evolve. So definitely tap in. And this is Owwll Week, where there's a lot of celebration around it. So if you follow Owwll on social media and that sort of thing, you'll see that there's some fanfare going on. Jason Hill, the founder and owner that I mentioned earlier, is doing some things. And so it's super dope. Definitely check it out. I recommend it for those audiences that I just mentioned. And my guest today, we connected actually through the Owwll app. And so I'm very excited to have Jaye Miller here that has joined us. She is the founder and principal of Haven Partners Group. She's a very well vetted, very well respected real estate professional, several generations of her family. When you talk about business and the longevity of it, think of today's environment. Where there's so many fly-by-nights. There, a lot of people just popped up. They're kind of what I call pandemic pushers. They just, as soon as COVID hit, all of a sudden they hit, right? And nothing wrong with that at all. But it's great to celebrate, businesses where, people of past generations took the risk and then have passed it down in their families. And Jaye's definitely, again, a respected professional of that, and she's carrying on that legacy. And so we're going to talk a little bit of real estate. We're going to have a little bit of fun, and we're going to talk a little bit about the Owwll app. So, Jaye, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you jumping in short notice.
Thank you for having me, Ron. It's a pleasure to be here. Sorry, that's like a popular line or a cliche, but it's true.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. It's kind of short notice. And actually, Jason Hill, again, the founder of Owwll, connected us on Facebook. And he speaks very highly of you and recommended that we have this conversation. And that's what it's about. It's about getting connected to great people in many ways where we may have never had an opportunity to connect or be in the same room. Now we get a chance to do that, albeit virtual. So thank you so much. And I really appreciate it. And Jaye, let's kind of get into it a little bit. I guess for those that aren't familiar with you, just kind of mention your business, but talk a little bit about yourself and kind of how you got into real estate.
Okay, that's a story that's a book in of itself, and I'll try and be brief. I'm not someone that loves to hear the sound of my own voice. I like being on the ground and helping other people to flourish, just like you do in your nonprofit.
Absolutely.
We actually create entrepreneur incubators by default, but it's actually a profit producing, income venue for passive investment. But it's also great opportunities for people on the ground for them to learn to become entrepreneurs. But to answer your question, my grandfather was my babysitter, and he was a realtor, and he paid on commission. He was paid on commission, of course, like most realtors are. I was never a broker.
Yeah.
But I witnessed my grandfather's dedication and his prosperity mindset and how he was an icon of the community. And there was no staging back then. He had to put little advertisements in the paper. And in West Virginia, instead of 4 rooms in a bath, it's 4 rooms in a path back in the day, right?
Right.
And so he would remove if anyone who doesn't know what that means, that inside joke is a lot of people, anywhere that there's not a septic system, there's an outhouse. And some people have very nice outhouses in hunting camps, right?
Right.
But a lot of, like 50% of the homes back in my grandfather's day, when I was very small, they had these fancy outhouses and everybody was okay with it. And they were box houses with maybe 2 bedrooms. And he would remove anything when he was preparing a property to sell or to rent. He would remove anything that was salvageable and anonymously drop it on the doorstep of someone from the church that he felt needed it, wrap it up with twine before there was masking tape, and send it out at his own expense. And when you're a kid, you don't have a basis for comparison for what's right or wrong, what's a good person or a bad person. You're a product of your environment, right?
That's right.
And so that's what I learned, and how he took care of his community. And his boss was the governor, and that politicians actually wanted to associate with my grandfather because he made them look good because he was so honest and everyone looked up to him, right?
Oh, that's awesome.
So yeah, so that was how I grew up. And then of course I go to New York City, and it's like the polar opposite of how, it's like I was thrown into the Lion's Den or the Shark Tank. I'm like, what?
Right.
People from New York have this reverse culture shock. People are nice for no reason in West Virginia. It's still like, it was a wonderful place to grow up, and I didn't appreciate it until I left. But my grandfather, above any celebrity or influencer, he was 67 when I was born, and he's had the biggest influence on me my entire life. I can say that now. But to imagine being 67 years old and influencing a child to that degree where they want to continue your legacy. And it wasn't like that. 30 years in between, I did my own thing, and that I just decided to represent Grandpa for the rest of my life, because seniors have so much wisdom. The youth these days can teach us. Quite frankly, the generation right now, like the 15-year-olds are making more than their parents because there are opportunities online that never existed in our day when we were young.
Right.
Again, environment is everything. So I'm not selling, well, you could say I'm selling real estate to our passive investors, but what makes it special for me is it's not, yes, it's the 5 people you hang out with, but it's more your environment. Where are you spending all of your time? So we're creating environments where people can meet people like my grandpa. He's gone. He's very happy. He's graduated to the other side.
Yes.
And people who live on our properties in active senior living, when you're in the right environment and you're happy and your finances are taken care of and you have all the right counselors and all the right support, you live longer.
Yeah. Hey, that's a word right there, Jay, for sure. Yeah, that's definitely a tremendous word. So what were you doing up until kind of taking up the mantle for your grandfather? What were some of the things that you were getting into? Were you kind of entrepreneur in business, or were you working corporate, or what were some of those early days like?
Yeah, I went to Boston for 2 years because I wasn't ready for New York City. And Boston is still the Northeast, still kind of Northeast mentality, getting you ready for what's to come. And I was accepted into the National Shakespeare Conservatory as an actress. I majored in theater, and I have to say, I started in animal and vet science, but it was all farm animals, and I wanted to work on exotic animals. And the bottom line was I could not handle death. I would just fall apart whenever an animal died. And I took theater as an elective, and I did really, really well. And I graduated with a fine arts degree. And so I was in acting and modeling in New York. And I realized I didn't want to be famous. I didn't want to be in a fishbowl. And I was getting more attention than I wanted on the streets in New York. There's a lot of, anyone that's never been to the big city, there's a lot of street harassment of young, pretty women. And so I would apologize to tourists. I was like, if it's your first time in America, this is really not America. America's not like this, because I'm from West Virginia. Like,
right.
People are nice in other parts of the country, right? They don't heckle or harass people. But anyway, and I went from there, and eventually once I decided I didn't want to be famous, I wanted to be, just a mom. I got a surprise at 40 that I'm ready to adopt, and I had a boy at 40 years old, and he's now 22, so you can do the math. And I got back into real estate, but I wasn't really able to hit the ground running because I wanted to be as much of a mom as I possibly could. I hit the ground running when he turned 18, and now we came up with this land development concept of proven models. And I should say I had something that preceded Airbnb for a month-to-month short-term rental, and I had no confidence. I had a toddler. I had no perspective in the market. And then in 2015 was before the short-term rental industry took off, and I had created a model for that. So now with the pandemic, we've all lost friends and relatives, and it's very sad, but it provided a lot of great things, which is 6 degrees of separation became 2, if not 1. You could go straight to the top and reach an executive, have a conversation, a short conversation, which kind of puts Owwll in the spotlight because it's a great example of that, to be able to reach people. And for the demand in the markets that we're working in, from my mistakes and my learning curve, because everybody makes them, it's the perfect storm for what we're offering now. And, I feel like I got a little tap from God. It's like, okay, it's time to take up grandpa's legacy and just go for it. And since I know my perspective in the market now and I study it so much and investing, I was like, I still like being the conductor of the orchestra and bringing in the talent, because nobody can do anything alone. But when you have the right people, anything is possible.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's tremendous. Just your journey, Jaye, and coming up and reaching that point, and then obviously with your son coming into your life, and you really taking the time to invest in him, right, in his life. It really is a testament to your persistence, your patience, and your willingness to sacrifice in many ways that time to pour into someone else, albeit your son. And then, getting to a point where, you've invested in your son, and then you're going back and investing in granddad, right? And the foundation that he gave, and then getting into a space that's often, very male dominated, and then an area of the country that then becomes very male dominated in a lot of the industry, right, is really intriguing to me. So talk about that. You talk about as being, a woman, in the real estate space, and then in an area of a country that's not maybe as forgiving as, say, the Midwest, right? And I'm kind of more of the Midwest side myself. And so I could definitely relate, being originally from Chicago and then being here in Memphis, kind of that Midwest Southern culture is much different. Can you talk about that, just kind of as you're entering the business and you've got maybe, I don't know if you felt a weight of your granddad's kind of platform, or maybe you had a piece about it, but talk about that and being a woman in the industry.
Yeah, well, being female didn't stop me, but I was certainly not immune to discrimination, to this day. And now we have a little, doing what I do, I get a little more respect for being older, and I get less attention for my looks, and that's a good thing, because then they can, like, they actually care about what's in my brain. But yeah, exactly. And it's funny that you should bring this up, because you and I had no prior conversation about gender equality, but that's a huge part of our business. We want an equal, like, I'm not like pro all women business, which a lot of women are. There's plenty of women in that space, but that we have equal genders from the front lines to the boardroom.
Absolutely.
And abilities based on their talent and their skills are number one in what they bring to the table, and not about any other piece of their background. It doesn't matter what their economic background is, their ethnic background. If they've got talent and they're driven and they want to learn and they want to work, we follow the wealth dynamics profile. So people can, take these short little quizzes and figure out the type of personality that they are. It's not like these corporations make you take this test to see, these complicated, long, intimidating tests. It's a very short, fun quiz. It's free on the platform. And you actually learn, and it's not about what level you're at. You could be a top executive. I was just on a meeting this morning with the owner of BNI Japan, because anyone that
BNI Japan. Whoa.
Yes.
Didn't even know that existed.
Exactly. And very humble person, but the point is that genius you start this, everybody starts the same, no matter how much money you have, because you have to understand wealth dynamics to build your team, regardless of what level you are, because the same principles work across the board. And it's great to know, even in relationships, who you're compatible with, who does things better than you do, how you share the household chores. It's not even limited to age.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Jaye Miller's our guest today here on episode 298 of the Minding Your Business podcast, and it's Owwll Week. So we're going to get into Owwll here in just a minute, but I'm just intrigued by Jaye's story, as many of you all are. Shout out to Carlos Reed. He commented, we appreciate Jaye Miller. So definitely appreciate that comment, my guy Carlos. And Holly, loving, following along as well. Holly Wagner, another great entrepreneur here in this Memphis area, says that's awesome. And so, appreciate you guys, and continue to make comments. And if you have any questions, definitely put those in the comments as well. And if we have time, we'll try to get to some of those also. So Jay, you mentioned kind of, creating these blueprints, right, for certain industries that are now large, right, multi-billion-dollar industries. When you talk about short-term rentals and things like that, for someone that's connecting with you that wants to get into real estate, and maybe they don't have the best credit profile. Maybe they don't have a lot of resources and things of that nature. You know, are those folks able to come to you and kind of get started? Let's just say they don't have a whole lot and they're just like, Jay, yeah, I'm really interested. I'm willing to work, right? I'm willing to do the grunt work, but I just don't have a lot of resources to get in. How can they get started with you?
Well, we have a conversation. I don't market myself as a coach or even a consultant because I'm focused all in on our business. But we need young people, and you don't have to be interested in wanting to work with me or for me. I'm just willing to have a conversation to be able to talk to the next generation, because the Bible says without vision you perish. And that's another level beyond knowing what you want. And there's adults our age and older. They grew, they became an adult at 20, but they never, got beyond that, and they never learned about money. So, I'm working with groups like 101 Financial and Financial Freedom, FUN, by Paul O'Mahony, and of course, Genius U, to help. I'm happy to talk to anyone that is serious about, and I don't want to, I'm not going to intimidate you, but it's, if someone told me to just know what you want at 12, at 15, at 14, at 16, not just the boyfriend, like we're culturally conditioned to get hooked up. And if you're not with somebody, you're not cool. If you decide what you want first, and you know exactly what you want, you're going to get a better mate. You're going to be happier. Your children are going to be happier. Your family relationships are going to be happier. But our culture makes people like pair up, even like in kindergarten, like it's cute or something. But if my vision, apart from our real estate and providing those kinds of environments, is to teach kids. And there's more opportunity now than ever. Just know what you want. And beyond knowing what you want, Dean Grazioso and Damon John has this like 8-page document. You could look it up on YouTube. It's like, there's 7 layers of why. Because what you think you say you want, is that because of you want someone's approval, or is it what you really want? You know, and mine still can't. And some people use their children as an excuse, like an easy answer. But when I got to the bottom of my why, it was still my family, my legacy, my son, right? But you still have to ask yourself the hard questions. There's 2 voices in your head. There's your social conditioning telling you you're not good enough, telling you but you don't have the skill. But all you need is drive. And money doesn't really matter all that much if you've got drive and you know how to network. When you know what you want, you know who to talk to, because you go to who's done what you want and you get friendly with them. It might take a lot of persistence, but you cannot underestimate, like my grandpa had. You didn't have to, there was no Social Security, there was no welfare. You had to grind. And fortunately for him, he didn't even need to have a high school education back in his day. He started working at 10. He got pulled out of the coal mine. He got pulled out of the 2nd grade. He couldn't even write well, to work in the coal mines to support his family. I mean, right? So we can't relate to that. And so there's basically really no excuse. And I have to say, if you're not in the right environment, you might be limited. But if you reach out as much as you can, and now you have social media, any way that you can. I have such a heart for people in situations where they're essentially hostage, or like we run a nonprofit. We want to put an end to trafficking, right? If you're trafficked, I don't like it when gurus say everything is 100% your responsibility. If you're someone's hostage or someone's child and you're at the mercy of someone else, it's not your responsibility. And
That's
once
right.
you need to have the opportunity or someone to pull you up, lift you up. Some people don't escape, and it breaks my heart. But there's things we can change in this country to like turn that around. And there's nothing better to do that than the wealth in the world, people becoming wealthy to be able to take the reins, because politics is not in charge. Wealth can be in charge. If you associate with yourself, and people don't want to leave their peers, that's a big loss to them. You can do it gradually, and it starts with knowing what you want, and the vision comes after that. But everything is a process.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love what you said, and I love some of the comments that are coming in. Holly mentioned, yes, love this. I knew what I wanted, but I still had boyfriends way too young. We won't judge you, Holly. wish I would have had this guidance. I do my best to guide my kids and grands. And so, that's what it's about. Like you just mentioned, it's, everybody comes from kind of different walks and different experiences. And, like you mentioned, some people become, hostages based on their situation, or they're at the mercy of a situation or unscrupulous individuals. And so connecting with the right people, and like you mentioned, being persistent, and getting in the right circles is just so critical today. And, these podcasts like this, the Owwll app, like you mentioned, social media is a way for people to enlarge their territory, right? Where that didn't exist for your granddad, right? It's very localized.
Us either, maybe,
Yeah.
when we were young.
Yeah. Well, for myself, I mean, this is kind of a latter part, but, first half of my life, this stuff didn't exist. Right. So, yeah. So I appreciate that, Holly. Those are great comments. I appreciate you, Carlos, again. Like and follow the podcast. Definitely do that. Definitely appreciate that. So Jay, you mentioned your foundation. And I wanted to ask you kind of about the work, of your foundation, and, obviously, want people to be able to connect with the work, that you're doing, and ways to be able to support. And of course, I'd love to have an offline conversation about it as well, on how we can get involved. But just kind of share with the audience, just, kind of a little bit about it and kind of the work that you're doing.
Thank you. It's both real estate based and community based. So we have two different property types that we look for. And for people just getting started in real estate, most of the deals are off market. So, but everybody has their niche. There's unlimited opportunity in real estate. Since we're looking for two specific property types, we find a lot of excellent deals that we have to turn down, that real estate professionals such as within Ron's network will be looking for. And we want high integrity individuals like my grandfather inspired to put these into highest and best use. And a typical scenario is when someone passes away, there's a will, they've turned over a property that nobody's interested in, which doesn't mean it's a bad property. It's just nobody in the family wants to run it, right?
Yes.
And they've turned it over to a charity, and the charity doesn't have the bandwidth or a person to do the transaction, and they have to turn it down even though they need the money badly. This is not an untypical situation. And our nonprofit handles those kinds of things where we can, if we know in time, we can reach out to attorneys, or we can, put ourselves out there that we can help make the charity the seller, so that the seller can sell to a developer or a real estate wholesaler or flipper, or if they need that space, to develop it with them as a partnership. And that's just one scenario. And that's in the real estate space. But at the same time, when we run a for-profit organization, and a lot of corporations do this, if you become an entrepreneur and you start your own company, you can have a nonprofit. And the great thing about nonprofits is that you're eligible for grants, and your profit margin is everything. But
Absolutely.
you have lower taxes by contributing to your community. So there's all this money out there that if you don't use it, it goes God knows where. We don't vote in how our money is spent yet, right? And so you can pay for expenses that are part of your operating expenses and how you serve the community by hosting events, allowing people to come to your events on your properties for free, by sponsoring a senior that might not be able to live on a resort for free, by helping an intern or sponsoring an apprenticeship. And some of your operating costs, that just how you run the business in general, that there's all kinds of grant money for, that makes your stakeholders and investors happy, but you're also setting an example because it's your taxpayer dollars and you're in charge of using it, or you can tap into it and use it responsibly, because quite frankly, there are a lot of corrupt things that, government money goes into because people don't step up and use it.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, one, I love that. And being in the real estate space, you mentioned, kind of what I like to call more of a scrupulous investor, a scrupulous developer, in that someone, like you say, the best and highest use of a property. And as you and I both know, there's some on the opposite end. There's some unscrupulous folks that can come in and sometimes take advantage of whether it's another nonprofit or a family in that situation. And we run into that a good bit, Jay, even here in my market, where there's, life transition takes place, younger family members that are the survivors, in many cases inherit a property. There's not an interest. There's not maybe the financial capacity, whatever that is. maybe the geography, there's a distance. And I see actually that a lot, where the children live, somewhere outside this market. They really don't have an interest or a knowledge of the market. And so they're kind of caught in this tough place. And we've been able to come in and, kind of, create options for them, right? Where we can buy a property, we can connect them with other investors, right, in our network who would have an interest that we vetted, that one will close the deal if it's something they're interested in, they want to move forward with. But then also they're going to use the property for some good. They're going to provide it to a needy family and convert that best and highest use. And so I love that. I'd love to be able to talk further about that. And I think others that are listening will have a great interest in that because, many folks, it happens in just about really in all our families at some point. You have generations that turn over, of course, that's natural for all of us. And, knowing that there's an organization out there like that people can reach out to, I think more people should know about that, quite frankly. Because that could be a game changer for people. And, think about the stress and the load that takes off of people. You and I are in real estate. We know and kind of know transactions. But if you're not in this space, right, it could be kind of daunting to think, oh, I pick up this property, down in Mississippi somewhere. I'm up in New York. I even know Dad had this, property. Now, all of a sudden, I got these attorneys and all these, people calling and texting me about it. And I don't know who's who. And, and I'm being told I've got to rehab it and, it's becoming blight or something like that. And, I don't want to be a contributor to that. And so I think all these things come into play. I think there's a large market for what you're doing. And you're right. Just like in my nonprofit, there's a lot of grant money from larger organizations that use organizations like yours and mine as a funnel to be able to properly and scrupulously deploy those funds and put them into action with results, right? That's what we do at River City Capital. That's what you're doing with your foundation. And so, one, kudos to you and your team for that. Because and I say that, Jay, in all sincerity, because oftentimes, real estate of the for-profit businesses is because of the most capitalistic viewed businesses is real estate, right? And so to have that foundation component, that nonprofit component where you go in with a big heart and help people out is really fantastic.
But you can't have one without the other. And just like you're saying, the corporations look for people like your foundation or mine because it's corporate tithing. It's it's no longer just politically correct. If you don't do it, you're not considered like a real corporation that wants to last, because you have to have that part of giving and as part of your profit, because, large corporations can afford it. It's good PR for them. We make them look good. We put them on the spotlight. We give them credit to the community. So it helps them and their PR, but yeah.
Yeah, so absolutely. No, I love that. And so in the show notes, of course, anybody that wants to connect with Jay, you can do so. The link's in the show notes here. So for those of you listening to the podcast or coming back to listen to it, you can go right into the show notes, connect with her. Probably one of the best ways to do that is through LinkedIn. So you can connect directly with her and make sure you do that. And if you do, let Jay know that you heard her right here on the Minding Your Business podcast. Before we get out of here, Jay, let's talk a little bit about Owwll and the Owwll app. I know you're kind of getting used to it and kind of getting ingrained in it. I opened the show talking a lot about it, but for those of you that are not involved, one, you can see it scrolling across the screen here. You can go to champ10k.com. I do have a link to get into the Owwll app. I'm not a affiliate or a sales rep or anything like that. However, if you do use that link, you will get and you sign up, you'll get $10. There's no cost to sign up, of course, but you'll get $10. I'll get $10. So it does reciprocate. But much bigger than that is you could connect with folks like myself and folks like Jay on the app, right? And it's a great way from what's been deemed as connect media to be able to do so. And so it's a growing app. I recommend it if you're looking for advice. If you want to be an expert, there's a way that once you sign up, no cost. Basically, they vet you out, make sure you are who you say you are, and you do what you say you do. And Jason, the founder, does and his team do a great job of that. And that's a little different than some other social media where you can kind of, be what you want to be almost. Jason, they go through a vetting process. For example, when I came on, and wanted to be an expert, Jason's team reached out. They looked through my social media. I had to send them information that showed, that, River City Capital really is River City Capital. That I had done real estate deals before, that I wasn't just some guy, I wasn't just this YouTube guy who did one deal and now I'm this expert. So, they had to go back, they had conversations with people. So, it's not like they checked my blood type, but they did do a dive into who I was, right? And that helps create a safety into the community, right? And so that's the one thing that I like about Owwll is it's a very safe community. You can rest assured that the people on there have been vetted, those experts. You can't just have read a Cracker Jack box and jump on. And so Jay's vetted on there. I'm vetted. Others are vetted, and so you could do so as well. And it's a great way to be compensated for your time and having those calls. So I make myself available. So if you follow me on there, once you get on, you can get alerted when I go live, so to speak. And I'll do the same with you so that I'm alerted when you go live. And that way, if you're available for a call, I'll give you a call. I'll spend the money and give you a call, and we'll have a 10-minute conversation or a 20-minute conversation. And we can pick each other's brains or find out how we can be resources to each other. Or you may have questions that you feel I can answer. And then when Jay, do the same for Jay and do the same for others. And so I invite you to connect there in all sincerity. And Jay, what are your thoughts kind of on the app? I know you're kind of getting engaged with it a little bit more, but where do you see it going? And just kind of what are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, quite frankly, I've never seen anything like it. And I think it can lead to lots of amazing, great things. Entrepreneurs, young people or people who want to learn from an entrepreneur, there's nothing greater than a 5-minute session with a mentor you're not committed to. And you're not necessarily looking for a mentor or to even invest in one to get a taste of what that's like, because they can see your blind spots without being negative. They ask the right questions. So to pull out of you skills you didn't know were marketable or can be monetized that you didn't know you had. Even when you think you have nothing, you really don't. Because everybody's on the planet for a reason. You have skills and talents that the world needs from you only, even though you think you're doing something that someone else is doing. They don't do it like you do it, and somebody wants it from you versus somebody else. And there's nothing like a mentor or just getting a taste of what that's like to spark you into want to learn more. Maybe not necessarily with that person, but you'll know where to go in the next direction just from that one conversation. And you can develop relationships and connections that can last for life, either to circle back or that can continue, or more about yourself you didn't know before that could take your life or start it to go on the next level where you want to go.
Yeah. No, absolutely. You make a great point. And, we were talking earlier and you mentioned about kind of, some of the, discrimination you faced obviously as a woman in your industry. And, when I cascade that over to Owwll, one of the great things that, again, I love about the security piece is you get a chance to have a conversation with someone without like giving out all your information, your phone number, and, possibly being harassed. You think of as a woman, and with social media, where people can come on and see your picture and all that type of stuff. And, people can kind of harass you and get really odd and weird. Right. This is a platform that takes that element away. And so now, obviously, with someone that's willing, people are less likely, I think, Jay, to try to spam you or, try to harass you if they got to pay to talk to you. Right. And so that's a big piece of it. And like you say, without having to give out your contact information initially. Right. And so even in my business where I refer business owners to experts like yourself, I can do so without giving them all your number. And now you're getting these random calls. You weren't prepared for the call. You don't know what is going to be discussed. You don't really know what's in it for you to dedicate that time. Right. Whereas now you can see everybody's profile and get a sense of who they are as they're calling in or even prior to them calling in. And it's a great way for you to kind of vet people out and see, okay, I think you would be a good client for what I do. Let's take this off the app, right? And let's, now I'll share my contact info or we can hop on a Zoom. And so I think it's a great space like that. Do you kind of agree with that and have some
Yeah,
thoughts
I
there?
think the vetting, thank you. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, please.
Um, I think the vetting system is really good because I don't think anyone on this platform that is actually vetted as an expert is the kind of person that's got a marketing department or a VA that's going to continue to harass you and ask to get on your mailing list and keep coming back and ask you for service, because people at an expert level, they can pick and choose who they work with. They don't, it's not about, even if you need the money or even if anyone needs the money, and this is more advice, don't take a client that you don't like, because I don't care how much money they have, they will only make your life miserable. And
That's
Ron,
right.
Ron can tell you, you get an investor, you should only take what they can comfortably afford. Some like young flippers will just take any amount of money that they say they have and not vet the person. That can become
Right.
your worst headache, take your deal south, get you sued. So you really, please, there's abundance everywhere, no matter where you are in your career. Just, you can select who you want to work with and make a lot of money without having to say yes to somebody that you have you have a bad gut feeling about. Just don't do it. And you have the opportunity to do that here. And you select each other, you interview each other, we see each other at a peer level regardless of where you are in life, to see how we can help each other going forward.
Yeah, no, I love that. That's a great way to sum that up, Jay. So I appreciate those comments and encourage people to connect with you there. As we mentioned, LinkedIn, connect with Jay on Owwll. As you can see, she's a wealth of information. And just great to connect with, and you just never know where those opportunities come. So I encourage you, don't be bashful, don't be shy. As Jay mentioned, you're coming in at eye level, right? And so be confident, be persistent, but definitely reach out and connect. And you just never know. Jay might introduce you to someone that changes your life, right? You may be able to do business that takes you from one level to the next. I'm certainly a product of that. I mean, sometimes it just takes one connection, one deal to really skyrocket you and completely change not only the course of your life, but your children and grandchildren. Lives can be changed. And, again, for those of us that, we're both old enough to. I remember parents used to complain about long distance phone calls, right?
Yes.
Like think
Yes.
about if this was the 80s and you and I were talking, it'd
Oh,
be,
no.
it would have been, 99 cents a minute, right? And this call would have added up real quick.
Yeah, I remember that.
South
Thanks for
Central
reminding me.
Bell. Yeah, South Central Bell and all. Shout out to them. But so that wasn't that long ago where being able to meet people and connect outside your market was, very expensive. At best, we could have wrote each other letters and been pen pals, right? But that was about it. And so now we can connect in this real time fashion. And that's really awesome, leveraging the technology. So, Jay, before we get out of here, listen, I really appreciate you taking time. This has been a fun conversation. It's been informative. I definitely, love and respect your story and how you got to where you are today. And I know you got so much further to go, so much more you want to accomplish and engage in. And so I definitely appreciate this. I really do. And you did this on such a short notice and that sort of thing. So I appreciate your flexibility and your engagement here on the podcast. And just want to give you kind of some final words.
Well, thank you. Well, all I can say is, Ron, and I'm not a flatterer. You don't know me that well, but I'm really not. I appreciate what you do and what you do for your community and how you use your career to get to a place where you can give back and help others to become productive. And that's what we have a lot in common with. And I'm sure we're going to continue this relationship. And just to let everyone know out there, Owwll is a great platform. There's an opportunity and opportunities here that never existed before at any time in history. And time is still short. Life is short, and your time can drift by very quickly. So, take some time to reflect if this conversation's had any, impact on you, to ask yourself what you want and just decide to go for it. And ask the universe every morning. If you ask questions of the universe, they'll give you answers instead of you're like shortchanging yourself and the other voice in your head telling you can't do it, because it's not really the one that you want to listen to. And it's not a real voice. It's just the one that keeps you alive, that keeps you where you are. And you have to tell it who's boss and serve whoever you are put on the planet to serve.
Yeah, absolutely. No, Jay, I thank you so much again. Though, thank you for those kind words, by the way. And, again, I definitely appreciate continuing the conversation and the relationship. And again, I encourage everybody that's listening to this to do the same. Share this with someone. If you think that they can benefit from this conversation and benefit from connecting with Jay, definitely, share this with folks in your network and in your circles. We're going to go ahead and get out of here. Thanks for Jay Miller joining us today, as being our special guest here and having this podcast during Owwll Week. Right. So you can connect with Owwll again. Go to champ10k.com. There's a special link for you to join Owwll right there. Definitely check it out. There's resources as well. If you go to Owwll Academy, and Owwll is spelled with two W's and two L's. So Owwll academy.com. There's some resources there to help you learn more about the platform. There's some quick kind of training videos and things like that. So it's really helpful. A lot of apps don't have that. A lot of times you have to kind of wing it yourself, right? You gotta you get into it and you just start playing around with it. Owl's done a really good job, and Brian Strubar, one of the great professionals associated with Owwll, has done a great job of curating some of these videos and kind of training pieces. Jason has as well. And so go in there and just kind of check that out, even before you download the app. Even if you go to owlacademy.com, you'll learn some more. And you'll be able to kind of see how the app can connect with a lot of what you're already doing. A lot of times what I found is you don't always have to try to recreate the wheel or create something new. Try to see how the app can incorporate with what you're already doing or already wanting to do, and you'll find it that much easier to adopt. Three things that unite us all, no matter where we're from, no matter what side of the ocean we're from, what side of the tracks, what side of the country, what side of the world. There are three things that unite us all. We all want to be a little bit better for ourselves, a little bit better for our families, and a little bit better for our communities. And if we keep those three things in mind with everybody that we meet, right, we can all collectively make this place a little bit better. We'll always find differences. There's always going to be something to argue about. There's always going to be the next news cycle. There's always going to be something designed specifically to divide us, right? And if we spend time looking for what divides us, we'll miss the opportunities to connect. And so think about that with everybody that you interact with, no matter what your ideologies are, right? We all have those three things. We may not agree on how to all get there, but we're all trying to get to the same place. Be a little better for yourself, a little bit better for your family, a little bit better for your community. Ron Brooks, this has been episode number 298 of the Minding Your Business podcast. I thank you all so much. Bless you all. I'll be right back for episode number 299. Then we'll get the 300, right? And I have something special for everybody. So thanks again to Jay Miller, and everybody be blessed. Peace.